Researching vaccines and natural health for over 45 years, speaking for 30 years, and is an expert on these topics. Mary was one of the founding members of Michigan opposing mandatory vaccines, now called Michigan for Vaccine Choice, and was the director of vaccine research. Wow, that's a lot of research, 30, 40 years. She's written a book, and we can put that up later. Mary's also a mother of 5 grown unvaccinated children and grandmother of 13 unvaccinated children. Mary teaches parents how to raise healthy children outside the medical model. Mary is a dedicated Christian pro-life advocate, passionately dedicated to waking people up about medical tyranny taking place and fights for freedom. Mary, it's very good to meet you. And as I said off air, somebody that we did know that was pushing vaccines and the dangers of them and solutions, we actually knew, and just by coincidence, you took over her radio show, yeah. So, yeah, Rebecca Carley's was a good friend, and I wish her well. And but people like you, there's not many of you. I mean, I'll just tell you my story first. Hello, anyway. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance to say hello.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I think I'm a bit excited because we've had many people in our lives come forward, like Dr. Carley, and she kind of explains a little bit of why you've got these problems. But I've read a few of your articles and videos, and you kind of give me the full answer now. So it's just by coincidence, we've sort of linked together without no reason. I didn't come looking for you. It just popped up, and I thought, wow, that's got to be a Dr. Carley because she was very good at what she knew. But yeah, so I first got into all this when our children were taken into care, because social worker says they're playing up bad behavior, you can't look after them, so you don't deserve to have your children, so we'll take them away from you. And I was looking for an answer, and I went to a lady called Christina England. She's recently wrote a book about the UK government and the vaccine policy. It's called Vaccination Policy in the UK Government, the Untold Truth. And with all her contacts, Howard Buttram and a couple of others, and with all our medical records, she said, I think I can confirm now what you already knew. I said, what's that? All I know is the States took my kids. She said, they've been damaged by that vaccine because you've explained before the vaccines, after the vaccines, and absolutely. And then Dr. Carley obviously made it a bit more reassuring, well, not reassuring, but, she made more sense of the story, and I'm pretty certain that you're going to make even more sense of this because you've researched autism in a big way. And even though it wasn't said to me by Christina England, maybe they may have some kind of traits of autism. But I researched something she said and the other doctors, and they said, your children's myelin sheath is damaged. And then I went researching that, and that's sort of all linked to autism. And
yes.
I knew, but even though I knew, it's not going to help the children. It's not even going to help me knowing. It's just, all you can do is prepare and not have too many vaccinations. And of course, most people never until COVID, and then suddenly I had a COVID jab and I got cancer 3 weeks later. But anyway, maybe a coincidence, maybe not.
That's quite a story. I'm glad you shared that with me. I'm very sorry to hear what you've been through. I can't even imagine. And it's really hard when the government steps in and they take our children from us. And then we find out in the long run that it's because we did what we were told to do by the government, what was encouraged to do by the medical doctors, the so-called experts in the white coat who know everything about the human body. And we, as lay people, know very little, right? This is what they assume. And so it's very sad to find out that you went through that situation. I'm really sad to hear that. How old is your child now that you believe has autism or is on the spectrum of some sort?
Both of them, because they were a year apart, so they were given multiple. I think at that time there was multiple vaccines from about the age of 1 or 2. You'll have to correct me on my figures. I'm just doing this from a dad's point of view now.
Right.
So they had many vaccines. They were split up into vaccines. You have this one this month, that one next month. But after that, in the UK, they give as many as they can in one jab now, which is not a healthy thing to do.
I actually did a little research because I'm from the United States, people, and we are the most vaccinated country in the world, right here in the USA.
Wow.
And so I decided to look into what you do compared to what we do. In the United States, we start vaccinating the day they are born. Before they're 12 years old, 12 months old, 12 minutes old, 2 minutes old, they're getting a vaccination. So what we do in this country is far worse than what you're doing in your country. Our autism rates right now are 1 in every 36, and I believe it's probably worse than that. According to stats that I saw on the internet, your autism rates are 1 in every 100 children. So 20 years ago, our numbers were 1 in 100. And in that last 20 years, we've added so many vaccinations to our schedule. Our children in the United States will get 38 combination vaccines by the time they are 18 months old. Never before done in history. Never before ever studied for long-term safety study. And so what I see is that we have a huge experiment taking place on humanity with no regard of how it's going to affect our children, our generations, our country, or our world. So I'm telling you, it's pretty grim out here in the U.S. We do have a lot of change taking place. By the grace of God, Robert Kennedy Jr. became our Secretary of Health and Human Services, which is a very powerful position here in the United States. A little background on him. I've been at conferences with him. I actually personally handed him my 6-part DVD series, which I make available on my website in download form or in a USB port to plug into your computer. People no longer have a DVD player here. I don't know how it is there, but I stopped producing the DVDs and I now have it as downloadable or I have it as a USB port. But Robert Kennedy Jr. got my DVD back in 2001 or 2021 or 22 when I saw him at a conference. And so he has been doing research on this for dozens of years. I've seen him at multiple conferences, most of them autism conferences, where he's been talking to the doctors, the researchers, the various different producers, authors, vendors of products to help children on the spectrum. So Robert Kennedy is like an autism genius at this point, and he's going after autism in our country. And he says, his voice says, that American children are the sickest children in the world.
Wow.
And I ask myself, how does this happen? We're supposedly the first world country. We're supposedly the leader in the world. And yet we're doing something to harm our children to make us sicker than, 30, 40 different countries in the world. And so anyway, I knew this was going to happen, Andy. I watched this happen in front of my face. As you stated, I've been researching over 30 years. I started before I had my first child. I was very blessed because my husband was a chiropractor and we were learning all about natural health. And we made an informed decision before having children that we would never give them a vaccination because we had the opportunity to learn about our amazing immune system. And I give God the glory because honestly, I came from a very large family, number 7 of 11. And my mother did what most parents did. She vaccinated. But back then we were getting 2 or maybe 3 by the time we were 5 years of age. So I was born in the 50s. So things have changed so dramatically over the years that when my children, when they were born, my first one was born in 1980, she would have gotten 8 to 10 vaccinations starting at 2 years of age. And then from that point forward, it's just evolved. They began doing them day 1 in the hospital. They began doing more vaccinations. So now the average child that gets vaccinated in the United States gets 38 to 40 vaccines before they're even 2 years of age.
God, that's scary. I have actually got the details now of what they do in the UK. I mean, this is scary. This is now, I mean, when I was young, I don't remember personally, but I know from conversation with my mum, I didn't have one for 2 months, probably nearly 6 to 8 months.
Yes.
But at the moment, anyway, vaccines for babies under 1 year old of age, 8 weeks, they get the 6-in-1 vaccine, which is rotavirus and MenB vaccine. 12 weeks, they get the 6-in-1 vaccine second dose and the MenB vaccine second dose and the rotavirus second dose. 16 weeks, the third dose of both. And then they get the pneumococcal vaccine for pneumonia, I believe. Then the 1 year old, I mean, it just goes on. 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, and so on, 3 years. They're practically injecting them as quicker they, as soon as they grow, grow more injection.
I know. And imagine in the United States, by the time our babies are 2 months, they're getting twice as many. And by the time, like I said, by the time they're 18 months, they get 40 different vaccines. And see, the thing about it is, every month that your child doesn't have a vaccination, their immune system is working. So you are at a huge advantage because you don't start doing it in your country the day they're born. We give them, if you allow them, okay, it's not a law, it's a recommendation. And they say it's required if you're in the hospital, but parents fight it all the time. It's not a law. You can fight it and you can say no, but if you're not careful, they'll do it behind your back. So if you live in the US, be careful because you can't leave your baby out of your sight. But in the US, they start doing it. They give them a vaccine that was designed for drug users and prostitutes. Hepatitis B does not affect children. It does not affect babies. They're not out having sex and they're not involved with drug use when they're infants. And so it's a completely unscientific vaccination. But the reason they do it is because they can. They went to Congress and said, we've got this vaccine. And they said, oh, good, let's start doing it the day they're born. I mean, it's absolutely insanity. It's unscientific. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is talking about it. He's talking about the amount of aluminum in that vaccine. We are injecting our children with a toxic load, a toxic dump of bioengineered, man-made viruses and toxins that would never be found in the human body.
No, I totally believe that because we've had a study out recently about the flu jab. I think it's about 30% negative that people are not, basically they're not benefiting from the flu jab. Right. It's not helping anybody. In fact, it's minus 30% negative.
Yes.
It's actually giving people the flu, giving people all the other symptoms on top of that. I know that flu, you're supposed to have the flu jab, you get the flu temporarily or just mildly, then it protects your immune system apparently. But it's the opposite at the moment, and then the COVID-19 shenanigans, it's, like I said, we wanted to travel. So we love Asia, and at that point, we'd booked a holiday, and the only way you can travel is have a vaccine, COVID-19. So we had that one. A few months later, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I never even thought nothing of it. They took the kidney out. Everything was fine. In fact, this will make you laugh. I had a clairvoyant type of person from the US, and she told me, and she wasn't world famous, but she wasn't bonkers either. She said, you're going to have a health scare. There's going to be some kind of pandemic. I just put that down to a big flu bug. And she's going, you're going to have a serious health scare, but you're going to come through it. No, you can't make that stuff up. And yes, I did have the health scare. And it was only probably a couple of years later, about 22, 23, UK done a study, and they believe, that people having the COVID-19 can actually, it can trigger the cancer, because
Yes.
I watch a lot of the chiropractors on YouTube, and apparently certain foods, certain vaccines can actually feed cancer in a negative way. But also you could do it the other way around. If you eat the right stuff, take the right vitamins, it could actually delay the onset of cancer. So yeah, it's amazing what, if every single person knew, they could do to help themselves. And a lot of people are scared, because if I don't take my children to that health appointment to get a vaccine, I'm going to be abusing my child some way, and maybe social services will come in, Department of Health.
Do they still require you to take your children in and get them vaccinated?
Not mine, no, but young people I was referring to.
Yes. Well, if we don't stand up and say no, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And thank God you don't do in your country what we do in our country, because you have 1 in 100 children on the spectrum of autism. We're 1 in 36, and I think it's worse than that. They're only counting the children that are enlisted in school. They're not even considering the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 4-year-olds that aren't in primary education yet. And so I think it's much worse here in the United States than they're telling us. And it's predominantly the boys that are affected. Most profoundly, it's the boys that are affected. So that means we're losing out on all these fathers. It's going to affect generations, not just this one or the past one, but it's going to affect generations to come, because there aren't going to be enough men to father children. And that's really a serious problem. So anyway, what else would you like to talk about today?
I suppose, so we've all realized we've got the autism. How can we prevent it? How can we deal with our symptoms?
Well, and that's a whole nother topic. I helped put on 5 training conferences for doctors with my daughter, Dr. Renee Hunter, who is a chiropractor, and she is now a holistic family nurse practitioner. But years ago, 2010, 11, and 12, we put on conferences. And the key to reversing autism, that is regressive autism, of course, there's no guarantees, but the key to it is detoxing and cleansing the body. And the first thing parents usually do is they change the diet. These children have a severe gut imbalance. And Dr. Andrew Wakefield. Have you heard of Dr. Andrew Wakefield before?
I've had the pleasure of interviewing him once or twice.
Okay. Well, he was right.
Unfortunately, he got a lot of stick, and yeah.
Yeah. Well,
he
he's
doesn't do
living in
many
the
interviews
U.S.
anymore.
He's living in the U.S. now, but fortunately, he was right that the gut-brain connection has never been recognized before. But if you destroy the gut biome and the gut flora, the brain is going to malfunction. Yeast and fungal take over. And before you know it, you have byproducts of the yeast and fungal toxins getting into the brain. And so our focus when we were teaching doctors how to recover children was to start in the gut, to get rid of the funguses that don't belong there. There's probably parasites in there that don't belong there. And so we talked about how to do testing and then how to treat it with an antifungal diet, along with a couple prescriptions, nystatin, which is a pretty benign antifungal that treats It doesn't hurt the body. It just kills the fungus. And then some children needed diflucan or other antifungal medications for short-term use. But when you start getting the fungus under control and you start getting the food allergies under control, children will sometimes get language back, eyesight will come back, a lot of things can improve.
Yeah, while we're talking about that,
Excuse me.
our family, through no fault of our own, I mean, obviously, you do, sort of now and again you overeat. You have a bad diet. Some people with mental health problems, especially if you're stuck in the care system and you had no access to mum and dad, or vice versa, you couldn't have your kids. Anyway, our kids are 26 and 25 at the moment, but is having autism linked to being overweight? Not because you're force feeding yourself all the time, but because you may have done once and then you tried them, whatever diet you have, you can't lose weight. Maybe it's the same answer, really. Even if it wasn't autism linked, maybe you need to cleanse your gut to actually live healthily.
Well, actually, some of the ingredients that are in vaccinations, the number one being aluminum, affects mitochondria function, which affects cell energy, which throws off metabolism. I have a scratchy throat. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So you see, they're putting things in the human body that don't belong there. And one of the vaccinations, which you do take in your country, excuse me, is the hepatitis B vaccine. And again, the one I mentioned that was made for prostitutes and drug users. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm going to mute for a second. I have to cough. Once in a while, I get a scratch in my throat around this time of year. This is autumn here, and so I don't know.
Do you know what? I recommend you have the flu jab.
Oh, goodness. So anyway, so aluminum is known neurotoxic, and it's in almost every single vaccination. They say it's a stabilizer, but it's really it's an adjuvant. An adjuvant is something that stimulates the immune system to react for a long period of time. So it really makes the immune system mad. By the way, are you able to edit any of this out? No?
You don't need to, because
people are going to see me coughing here, and they're going to think, who is this lady coughing?
that's a bit like my photos behind me, of me mum and that, and my wallpaper. It's what they call it. It's a natural, unedited, normal stuff with normal people.
I know, and I'm normal, and I'm not young. I probably have some food allergies. In fact, I know dairy products don't like me, and I ate out last night, so I'm probably responding to some of the chemicals in the dairy that I had. But anyway, as I was saying, so the aluminum is an adjuvant. Adjuvants are designed to stimulate the immune system. And the only study ever done prior to them putting it into the vaccinations was done on IV nutrition given to infants in the hospital when they're born premature. They did one study before putting it in large amounts in our vaccines.
Wow.
Before that, they used to use thimerosal, a form of ethyl mercury, which was in the vaccinations from 1931 all the way until about 2003. At that point, Congress recommended reducing it to the pharmaceutical companies. They reduced the thimerosal, but they're like, well, we've got to put something in there to stimulate the immune system. So they increased the aluminum levels into astronomical levels. They did one study, and again, I can back all of this up with all the documentation, called the parenterial, the Aspen study, looking at the IV nutrition. And they discovered that IV nutrition given to infants in the hospital has aluminum in it. So they decided to take 200 babies. They took 100 of them and reduced the amount of aluminum. Somehow they filtered it out of the nutrition before the babies got it, and they left 100 babies with the normal amount of aluminum. And the study results came out later, and they said anything over 20 micrograms of aluminum can lead to neurological delay at the age of 18 months. And then they went on and studied it for 12 more years and found that it was causing bone density problems. They actually said in the study, if you get more than 20 micrograms of aluminum, it can lead to renal failure, which is kidney failure. Mm. In my research, I've discovered that babies do not have mature kidney filtering systems when they're brand new, because all they're getting, if we do it nature's way, all they're getting is breast milk. And if breast milk is the perfect food for an infant, the first several months, all they should ever have is breast milk. In fact, I breastfed all my babies, and I never stopped feeding. I didn't start feeding them food until they were 12 months of age. Wow. So the more you know about how God created the body, the more you can take care of our children. So long story short, a baby's kidneys are not able to filter out all that aluminum. And the study showed that aluminum didn't get filtered out properly. And so now, think of the first vaccination your children in your country get at 2 months of age, the Hep B vaccine. Our babies get it the day they're born. That first vaccination contains 250 micrograms of aluminum.
So I guess the answer is to start, well, if you have to have a vaccine and you want one, do it at least 2-3 months down the line.
I say wait till they're 2 or 3 if you really think you need it. How did you and I live without that Hep B vaccine? How did we manage?
The thing is, this is even a better question. When I was talking to my mum before she died about all these jabs, she doesn't understand a lot of this stuff, but she said, I never had any injections. If I had the flu, I took some hot tea or hot liquid, went to bed for a couple of hours, maybe even for the day. If I had some other, we dealt with it. They weren't available in her days. Well, at least she never had any in her days.
Well, they didn't have pharmaceuticals like that back then. My mom was born in 1924. They didn't have many pharmaceuticals back then, and they knew how to naturally take care of everything at home. You didn't have an insurance card to run to the doctor. You didn't have government paid insurance. I don't know what you have in the United K. I don't know if you have, government health care. But when I was growing up, my mother didn't have an insurance card to go to the doctor. So me and my 10 brothers and sisters, if we got the flu, she put us on a bed or a cot downstairs and she took care of us. Chickenpox, measles, all of these infectious illnesses are considered normal childhood illnesses. And that's because they develop our immune system.
Yeah, you're better off to have the disease. You're better off to have the disease than not to have it.
Absolutely. The doctors don't know this. They don't understand the power of the natural immune system. They don't get it. They're taught that the immune system is defenseless. And I'm telling you what, that's why I wrote my book. This is called Natural Immune Development, A Deeper Understanding. And it's only 90 pages, but I talk all about how I raised my 5 children who are now 46 down to 32. No doctors, no drugs, no vaccines, no prescriptions, no pediatricians, none of it. And you know what? They're all healthy, incredible, vital adults. And all my 13 grandbabies are being raised the very same way. And I've been teaching parents how to do this for many, many, many years. You go to a doctor for emergencies. You go to a doctor when you feel like you really need to. If your child is laboring and not breathing well, or really, really, really sick, go to the doctor by all means. I'm not telling you not to. I don't give medical advice. But I'm telling you what I did, what my husband and I did, is we raised our children with chiropractic care, healthy nutrition. We cooked at home as much as possible. I did natural birth. I had babies born at home. I did breastfeeding for long term. I never bought a jar of canned food for my babies. When they were ready to eat, I ground it up and they fed them what we were having for dinner. So my point is you can do this, people, but you've got to walk away from the pharma pseudo God who tells you you're ignorant and they know all. And I'll tell you something that they didn't know. When I wrote this book, which came out, 2000, I'm guessing 19, 18, I discovered that there's an organ in the body that they knew nothing about. It's the largest organ in the body. And it's called the fluid highway system in the body. Wow. And it literally, every organ, tissue, cell, everything, including our brain, floats in this fluid. And that's why they say we're 80% water, because we are floating in fluid inside. And everything you put on your skin or put in your mouth or inject into it gets circulated around the whole body. So when you think about a vaccination, they're injecting these deep into the tissue of the children. And they're injecting man-made, bioengineered, laboratory-produced viruses and bacteria that you will not see in nature into that baby and that child's body. It's like an atomic bomb that goes off inside that child's body. The body's probably going, what the heck is this invading us in the arm? You know, if there was an army in there, it'd be like, oh my gosh, we're being invaded. And then they do it in the leg and they do it in the other arm. And none of this has ever been studied for long-term safety. And by the way, I cover all of this. I show you documentation, charts, graphs, research that I've accumulated over the last 40 years. It's all on my DVD series, which is on my website called Vaccinations, Risk, Responsibility, and Rights. So everything that Mary Tocco says is fully documented. And you know, I'm not a doctor. And people say, well, why should we listen to you? I'm like, well, because I've been researching for 40 years. And I know darn good and well, the unvaccinated children are the healthiest children on the face of the earth. As long as they have clean water, decent nutrition, sanitation, and a place to live, they're going to be the healthiest children on the face of the earth, because God did not forget to give us an immune system.
I was fortunate when, long story, but my wife came into some compensation because she had some negative times when she was young. So anyway, went to South Brazil, Sao Paulo, and we went around all the slums in Brazil just because curiosity and all that. And some of them people that live off $1 a day for a whole family, I don't know how they do it, but the children are the healthiest ever. They've got no money for Medicare. They've got no money for vaccinations. And they don't look the same as us white British people that's had the vaccinations. You know, you can tell someone, I think, who's had vaccinations because there's no colour in them. But these Brazilian sort of dark coloured people, they just look so full of energy.
I have seen thousands. You know, my love is public speaking. I love reaching large crowds. So I want to thank you for inviting me on here today, because I feel like the Lord gave me wisdom before I had my children. And I'm grateful that I don't have children who are vaccine injured, because I believe 2 of them would have been, because of some other things that we've seen in their epigenetics. But my point is I am so grateful to meet people of all kinds. I speak in the Amish communities here. Our Amish people kind of live separate lives from the rest of us, and they do everything old-fashioned. They don't use electricity. They use horse and buggy. They grow their own crops. At least they used to grow their own crops without any interference. And they don't vaccinate predominantly. And guess what they have? Healthy children who get measles, who get chickenpox, who get mumps, who get, whooping cough. And their children survive. And they don't have any autism. And that's a living proof right there that God did not fail us when he gave us an immune system. You know, Andy, I think of it this way. When God made the animals and he put them in the wild, they don't have a pharmaceutical company. They're pumping them with stuff in the wild. They survive. They go on until man gets involved and somehow does something negative to them, but they have an immune system and they function quite well without medical intervention. Why would he create us in his image and not give us an immune system that is fully capable of taking care of itself?
There's another question.
Yes.
So the animals are vaccinated now. Let's say that we don't really want to eat a lot of meat, only enough that we need. You know, we don't really want to be vegan either, but
Right.
But when we do eat the meat, we're going to get their germs or their vaccination problem, even if we don't want vaccinations. So without sounding a bit weird or negative, is it the only way to survive is really be a vegan and don't have vaccinations, and then you at least have the most of both worlds?
No, veganism is not healthy. My own ex-husband, who was a vibrant chiropractor, never got sick. 6'3", strong, worked out, just like one of the most healthiest people you would ever know. He got involved with veganism and it became like a cult for him. I kid you not. And even though my two daughters are chiropractors and one of them's even a nurse practitioner, they are brilliant. They're researchers. They grew up, they say my nuts didn't fall far from my tree. My kids grow up thinking and questioning about everything. Both of my daughters who are chiropractors watch their father get skinnier, weaker. All of a sudden he started having neurological problems. All of a sudden he was having foot issues. He was having a hard time walking. He was having brain issues. He ended up having small strokes. He was killed by his veganism.
Wow.
And he just died a year ago. It would have been October 19th. So I know firsthand that veganism is not the way. They don't get enough protein. You can't do it. Juicing can be extremely difficult on the body. When in nature would you get 5 or 6 different fruits and veggies, put them together and mix them up and drink them? I mean, that's a modern thing. That's not proven safe and effective. No, I believe that being a carnivore is very important. I make sure meat's a very big part of my diet, but I know it's difficult to get clean meat. In the United States here, we have farmers who advertise that their cows are vaccine-free and pasture-raised. And that's the kind of meat that I seek out. You can order it online or you can go to farmers. My daughter lives about 3 hours from me. I take my cooler when I go visit her and we go to a farm where you can see them grazing and they don't vaccinate them. And they tell you, this is where we grow our meat. And we do the same thing with our chicken and chicken eggs. Unfortunately, when you go to a restaurant, you're getting the garbage meat. I get that. But did you know that they're putting vaccinations in lettuce, tomatoes, and also bananas now and have been for many years? Did you know that?
Say that again, because I couldn't believe what I heard there.
They are putting vaccinations in lettuce, tomatoes, and they've been doing it. They've been trying to do it in potatoes as well as bananas for many years.
Is it the idea that they want to preserve it?
Nope. They want to vaccinate us. You see, and again, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, although all of my theories are proving true. Because when you ask questions about what's going on, it'll open the door to a lot of other things that are wrong and that might be wrong. And so I believe they are trying to reduce population. And the best way to do that is through vaccination, because vaccinations contain products that are going to cause girls to become infertile and cause boys to lose sperm count. One of them is the Gardasil vaccine. The Gardasil cancer vaccine that they are recommending first to girls at the age of 9 is causing ovarian failure, and young girls are no longer having periods. And boys are now told to take it as well, even though it was made for girls. They said, oh, well, you carry the cervical cancer vaccine virus too, so now you take it. It's causing boys to reduce their sperm count, as are many of the vaccines. The aluminum in vaccines, COVID vaccines. We're settling in testes and ovaries of young people. So I believe this is a bigger problem where they want to reduce population. And the best way to do it, Bill Gates, you probably know who Bill Gates is.
Yeah, he's talking about that movie Lethal Weapon. That's exactly what he is.
Exactly.
Lethal Weapon 1.
During my lectures, I pulled up a video that basically it's a TED talk, and he's talking about we have to reduce the carbon footprint. You know, this whole carbon BS. Well, he's behind it. He said we have to reduce the carbon
footprint.
It's ridiculous. And he said, in order to reduce it, we have to do better family planning, abortion, better family services, putting women on the pill, going to third world countries and putting things in their vaccines to make them infertile. And then he goes right out and says, and better vaccines. To reduce population, well, Bill, you just basically documented what I've been saying. You're putting anti-fertility chemicals in vaccinations so that children are not born and people cannot have families. And I stand before God.
Tim has a lot of research and facts on that.
There's a lot of research.
Nice to do that show with him very shortly, in the next couple of Sundays, maybe.
Yes.
People would never believe that, vaccines are linked to depopulation, but it definitely is, not just because we're saying it. The numbers are out there proving it.
They are.
I mean, one example is what you said, the babies, when they're young, too young in America's case, they're having these vaccines. I mean, it's bound to upset them, their bodies and their mechanisms. You don't... Years ago, I used to think I was mad thinking about it, when my children were having these problems, and the doctor said, look, do you want some antidepressants? I said, look, I'm not depressed. The videos here of our children, and now look at them.
Yes. You're grieving, you're sad, you're distraught because you trusted them and your children were injured. It's not depression, clinical depression where you need a drug. You need answers. You need to forgive yourself. You need to deal with the anger and the frustration because you did what you were told to do by the trusted doctors. And they are wrong.
I was very lucky that, well, I say very lucky. I don't go to church. I don't read the Bible, but I believe in the biblical way of living. And this will make you laugh, and it's not one bit made up. So the picture is my wife was in hospital at the time in the mental health ward because, we'd had enough of social workers from October till about February knocking on the door, even on Christmas Day. She was knocking on the door, seeing if the children were okay. According to her, that, we didn't cooperate, we didn't do what she wanted. Well, if that was the case, I would have took the children sooner. But anyway, in February, one day in February, my wife had to go to hospital. Then 2 or 3 days later, when I was looking after the kids, they just come and took them away. Now, that particular evening, my wife smashed up a mental health ward. Of course, they never charged her with nothing. But I was sitting 100 miles away because that's where the hospital was for her and where we lived.
Oh, my.
And I was drinking away, and as you do when you're upset and try and find answers in the glass. I said, look, this is no good. I like drink, everyone does in moderation. I threw the glass in the bin. I don't even know why I didn't empty the the drink first. And I said, look, I sort of closed my eyes, looked up the top and said, look, if you're there and you really care about me and this problem, you come and show me a sign. You've got 1 hour. 50 minutes later, I know it's quite funny in a way. Knocking on the door, opens the door. Would you like to read our little leaflet? I said, who are you? We're Jehovah's Witnesses. You don't have to talk to us if you don't want. We understand. I said, come in. I've got a lot to tell you. I mean, I needed someone to talk to. So I
Yeah.
let them in. We still remained friends until today. The only disagreement is I don't believe in their policies,
Right.
but I do believe there's a God,
Absolutely.
And they helped us, and they visited the hospital with us. And well, that particular night, I was so upset. I drove 100 miles without killing myself after a few pints of alcohol.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I didn't go fast, and there were country roads anyway. I just not proud of myself for doing that. I never did it again, but
Well, so you felt the hand of God in your life. You see, God
I
will show
think
up when
even
we
though
need
it was the wrong type of God that
Exactly.
came,
Yes.
the real God acknowledged that, and he sent someone. That
Well,
was
he
weird.
sent two people who were out and about in your area who might be misled about God and whatever, but he sent you two angels to come help you in a time of need. And that's a beautiful story. And it's nothing I would laugh about because our God is grieved when we're grieved. And he loves our children and he sees what's going on in this world. And there are miracles happening all the time to people who are going through hard times. God is there and he's real. We don't always understand why we go through things. And I am, like I said, so eternally grateful that my children were never vaccine injured because I didn't do them. And I didn't get them drugs. And I didn't, I home educated my children. I kept them away from the system as much as I could. And, but I'm glad that you had that experience because God showed you he's real. And you don't have to go to a church to know God is real. You just have to acknowledge him in your heart and say, Lord, I acknowledge you and please help me and save me from, we all have to die someday. And I have the blessed assurance that I'm going to heaven. And man, there is peace. There's so much peace with that I think about it all the time. And I feel for people who don't have that blessed assurance. And all it takes is them calling out to God and asking them, saying, Lord, I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge you before now, but I need you. You are my savior, Jesus. You are my savior. Help me. And God will help and he'll show up. And but anyway, I'm glad that you ended up getting your children back at some point, right?
Well, the stuff, yeah, we did, but we didn't, if you know what I mean. They're 20, well, hang on, 2000. So one's 25 and one's 26. That was right.
Yes.
I get the years muddled up.
Yes.
Well, our son Aaron, he's probably the one who had the most autism traits. He likes counting things a lot. He used to like collecting things.
Yes.
Loads of different strange things that.
Yes. That are
Even as an adult, he does. Now, the last couple of years, he's sort of calmed down a bit more. And he's made us angry here and there, and so has her daughter. But it's her daughter that we thought was the one unaffected.
Okay.
Being in care, that she's the one who is affected.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really. Well, we've tried and we've tried and we've tried giving her a chance. So every time we talk to her, for 6 weeks at a time in the last 3 years, she'll want 2 or 3 months off because she said it's exhausting.
Right.
And we've took her on around the world holidays, and we just can't get our daughter.
Yeah.
She's so. I guess she's in an area where there's nothing to do. They're not encouraging her to go to work. She's overweight, almost eating herself to death, and she's smoking wacky backy, and she's on mental health drugs as well. And our son is kind of the opposite. He's more. I may not have money, I may not have a good job or even a job at sometimes, and I'm just going to make the most of it, you know.
Yes.
Get on the bus somewhere, take some pictures, put it on YouTube, try and make a couple of pounds, and yeah, so they're two different characters. We don't
Well,
get
all
on
you
with
can
her.
do is pray. All you can do is pray for them. That's all we can do for our children when they become adults, especially. And you know what? God understands their injury. He understands their limitations. He understands their problems, their mental state, their frustration, and he loves them. And we just need to continue praying and never stop praying for them, that God will intervene in their life through other people, through circumstances. You know, I pray that the Lord meet people in their dreams, because on 3 occasions, I have met Jesus in my dreams. And, you know, I know we're not talking about that today, but one time he met me in my dream. The circumstances are not necessary, but he came up and he hugged me and he said, I had a friend, John, whose wife has dementia, and she was suffering really, really bad for 20 years now. And he was just telling me how bad it was. And I was really concerned about him. And Jesus met me in my dream the next morning before I woke up and said, tell John, I've got this. And I woke up and I'm like, does Jesus talk like that? It looked like Jesus. I felt him. It was like, oh my gosh, it's you. And he said in my ear, tell John, I've got this. Well, I called John 2 days later. He lives in another state. And I said, John, I have something to tell you. And I told him how I met Jesus at a church we used to go to years ago, and how he came up and he helped me. And he said, John, he said to tell you, I've got this. And John started crying. He said, Mary, about 2 months ago, I was melting down in my bathroom on the floor, crying out to God, how much longer can I do this, Lord, with my wife being dementia? I don't know what to do, God. I'm losing it. And he heard God say to him, John, I've got this.
Well,
and he was crying. He said, you just confirmed that I wasn't crazy. I heard God say, John, I've got this. You see, God will reach us where he can, how he can, and he will use other people to reach our children who need to be reached. And my prayer is just, Lord, find them, seek after them, heal them, help them.
actually, you know, that wasn't, I know we're not talking about God either, but
I know, but it's okay.
That one example wasn't just the one example. I mean, to a non-believer at first, I've had 2 or 3 different messages. I mean, I mentioned the psychic earlier about the cancer. She also said to me, I mean, I'll show you my mum now who's deceased, kind of that one, the white hair there. And I said to her, you know, someone's passed in the family. Can you tell me, you know, what's coming through? And she said, your mum's got a big smile. She's got, and because she can't see the photographs, because at that point it was on radio. She said she's got white bushy hair, big smile. She used to do this and used to do that, and I think it's your mum. Mm-hmm. And the voice came through as well as I would have known my mum. I know you shouldn't dabble in that kind of world, but
I don't.
At that point, I think it was God's way of giving us peace by letting that happen.
Yeah. God will use all things. He can use all things for those that love him. And you're right. I don't dabble in any of that. But God used it for whatever reason. I'm encouraging you, don't waste your time or don't worry about the people out here. Go straight to him with your prayers and your requests. Just go straight to him.
I think what we do as people is not do it enough. You know, we know it works. You know, a bit like our car, we take it for granted. We use it every day. We can't be bothered sometimes to fill it up with petrol or get it at an engine check or whatever.
Right.
It's the same with God. You know, pray every day, even though there's nothing you want. Pray just to say thank you for what I've got. I'll do. That's
right. Be grateful. And even with all the children that are injured out there, God has a bigger answer. And just so you know, there's a huge awakening taking place in the United States. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are saying no to vaccines. They're opting to not give their children the Hep B vaccine at the hospital. We have a great awakening taking place here. And I believe that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to help open this whole thing. You know, I think we need to pull away from the World Health Organization. They're nothing but a criminal enterprise. And
Yeah.
I believe, you know,
Tim, we'll
Donald
have a
Trump.
great chat about that, as well as all the other things you've mentioned. Yeah, I mean, over here now, I made my views very clear to our GP, and they don't. Well, they don't do it in a bad way. Now they'll have a joke, you know. Would you like the flu this year, just in case the jab? I said, no, you know my views on that. Okay, no worries. They
Well,
don't bother you anymore, but they used to bother you. But now they're now realizing that people are not daft. We're not silly anymore. We don't want to be poisoned for free.
so were you guys mandated to take the COVID vaccine, or was it optional?
Most people, it was optional. I wanted to travel to Asia, and
Okay.
that was the only way I could travel.
So you didn't get it mandated in your country. Like, were people losing their job because they weren't vaccinated?
Yeah, that was mandatory. People who worked in healthcare had to have a jab,
Okay.
otherwise, no job.
Right. Okay. Well, they still have it on our schedule. And they even were recommending babies get 3 of them the first year of life. Is that crazy or what?
Yeah, now I think, I mean, this will make you laugh because it's not even funny, but it'll make you laugh. Most people now having COVID, they can only have it if they've got an autoimmune deficiency problem with their immune system, which, hey, that caused it in the first place, probably.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. A lot of people didn't have the knowledge to know any different, and that's unfortunate. That's why I'm always sounding the alarm. God's given me the knowledge. I need to sound the alarm. This has been my noble purpose on earth for the last 45 years, is to talk to parents about the risks involved with vaccinations, and then also encourage them to understand about our incredible immune system, how powerful it is. People used to freak out over a fever, and they always said, give your baby Tylenol after vaccines. Both of those things, you know, Tylenol is dangerous. I have an article on my front website under news articles about the dangers of Tylenol. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but Donald Trump came out a couple months ago and said, parents, stop giving your kids Tylenol. It can lead them to autism. And he's absolutely right.
I was actually going to ask,
Yes.
what is your view on Trump when it comes to the health administration? And
Well,
you've
I
just
think,
given one good example, but
yeah. But see, you know what though? I think that he's playing many games of chess at once. He can't come out. I know he probably believes the vaccines are dangerous, and I'd be willing to bet that his son didn't get them. Well, I'll tell you why. Back in 2000 and when his son was 3 years of age, I heard him talking on some show about friends of his whose child regressed into autism after vaccines. And he said, my son and their son are the same age. He said, we're not doing them anymore. This would have been way before I knew he was going to be a president, right? Well, I was determined to get my DVD, a different one. I had one called Our Vaccine Safe, and it was a 2-part DVD series, and it was one of the first ones to ever come out. And I was determined to get one to him just because he's a wealthy, influential man. So I've mailed 5 of them to the Trump Towers in New York, one a week for 5 weeks. And on the outside, I put to Donald Trump in big bold letters. I bet he got my first DVD series. Okay. And that would have been when his son was 3. Well, now he's 20. I know that Donald Trump knows that they're a problem. And that's why Robert Kennedy Jr. was appointed to be the head of HHS. But they're coming up against the biggest demonistic world group in the world, the pharmaceutical company. They are powerful. Their tentacles go into every area of government and medicine and schools, and and they control the doctors, they control the insurance companies. So they're coming up against that huge demon. And so it's going to be a rough road. And I think he has to tone down some of his rhetoric on the topic, because people are going to lose confidence in him, because most people think vaccines are great. So I think he's up. It's a war. In fact, it's a spiritual battle, and it's not going to be easy. And I know Bobby Kennedy Jr. is doing the best that he can to expose it, because Bobby Kennedy knows what's going on behind the scenes, but he's dealing with a very, very big spiritual war. And so all we can do is pray for God's hand.
Yeah, me and Tim's done a load of shows on spiritual wars.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of it's to do with, well, not just healthcare, but there's several different reasons why there's a spiritual war, and the depopulation is several different reasons again.
Yeah.
Just to finish this short show off, because when my friend Timothy Spearman's on, it might be a 2-hour show, or we could do several 1-hour shows over weeks.
Fine. Whatever you want.
I'd like to get your views on SIDS.
Okay.
You know, the sudden infant death syndrome. Because we had a lovely. I used to know this lady. She knew Christina England, and all the people like Andrew Wakefield, Sally Clark. I mean, she was convicted in '99 of SIDS. She was imprisoned, and when she came out of jail, the first year she got a judicial review. They said that they got it wrong. A year later, she killed herself.
Oh my God.
Sally Clark.
Oh.
You probably heard of Sally Clark, maybe.
I haven't, but how sad. No, I think I told you I did a deep dive a few months ago about SIDS, and I've known for years that vaccines are the culprit, or one of the culprits. We had a man who was running for coroner in our county. The coroner is the one that picks the bodies up and then delivers them to the people who do the autopsies. And he was running for coroner, and I asked him, I said, have you ever seen the correlation between vaccinations and SIDS? And he looked at me shocked, and he said, no. And he said, I'm running. If I win, will you please send me research? Because I told him a little bit about myself. I spent many months putting my research together, and I put together what I call a scientific brief on sudden infant death syndrome, sudden unexplained death syndrome in America. I'm willing to send it to anybody who wants a copy. They do not do proper autopsies to determine if vaccine toxicity causes death. And in this study, I was able to deep dive what aluminum does to the mitochondria, which is the energy producer in our cells. And with the amount of aluminum that these babies are getting in vaccinations the first year of life, so I didn't give you this fact, but by the time a baby in the US gets fully vaccinated by 18 months, they receive 4,925 micrograms of aluminum.
Enough to kill you.
Absolutely. And so they don't do the proper autopsies to look at the tissues to see if there's aluminum toxicity there. They don't. They basically say, oh, it looks like the baby stopped breathing. Oh, it's SIDS. And then they call it sudden unexplained death. Okay. In this country, we get about 3,600 babies a year that die consistently of SIDS, but they open it up and they reclassify some of them as respiratory failure, sudden infant death, sudden unexplained death, and then infant demise. So they split it up to make it look like, oh, there was 1,200 here, 800 here, 6, whatever, so that you don't see the bigger picture. 3,600 babies about every year die in this country. And I believe the number one cause is vaccinations. So I ended up sending this brief, and I'll send you a copy. Would you like a copy?
Oh, yes, please.
I'll send you a copy because you were gracious enough to get me on. And anybody who goes to my website and makes any kind of donation, $1, $2, $3, $5, it helps me keep going, because it's a 23-page document. It shows charts and graphs. It talks about the autopsies they're not doing that they need to be doing to look at the tissues of the brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidney. They don't do it, but we have the technology to do it. And it's not even that expensive. So I ended up going to the head of our big hospital here in Charleston, South Carolina, MUSC, and I presented it to one of their top doctor researchers who happens to be a PhD toxicologist. And honestly, it blew her mind. She had no clue of what our babies are getting through vaccines. She had no idea how many they're getting. She didn't know any of the ingredients. She was actually shocked. And then when I actually, she's the one in charge of all the autopsies. And she's in charge of 3 hospitals. And I asked her, I went through the autopsies, a standard autopsy. And she agreed, yeah, this is standard autopsy. This is what we do. And then I said, guess what you're not doing that you need to be doing? And I showed her the tissue studies that need to be done. And she basically said she was going to look into it. That was about 3 to 4 months ago. And now I haven't heard anything. So I sent her a beautiful letter saying, I want a statement from you. Because my goal is to get this into the coroner's hands all around the world and all around the country. And I said, and I need a statement from you so that I get permission to use your name. Because if I don't get a statement from you with that permission, I'm going to start using it regardless. Because everyone's going to know that this top doctor here in the United States got a copy of my brief and is fully aware that they are not doing proper autopsies. I told her that I needed a written statement back, and I sent her a letter in the mail, and I haven't heard from her. In the meantime, I'm copying it off, and I'm sending it to neurologists, PhD researchers, but obviously it costs money because these are colorful documents. Each one takes me about $15 to produce. And so I'm letting people know, if you want me to send you a PDF of this, make a donation from my website. I'll send you a PDF. You can copy it off. You can share it however you want. We have to wake people up. SIDS, and in this country, I believe the number one reason is vaccinations.
Yeah, do you know any? I mean, I mentioned Sally Clark over here, and there was an Alec, I can't remember her first name, but a surname with Canning's. You know, they were falsely charged with
Shaken baby?
The deaths of them, yeah.
Yeah, shaken baby syndrome. That's what they do, but they don't know. They're not doing the proper autopsies. And there are thousands of people sitting in jail who lost a child due to vaccine injury, who are in jail because of shaken baby syndrome. It's a crime against humanity.
Or lost their children with the Department of Health. And
exactly. We have a real problem. You see, Big Pharma wants to own us, control us, and reduce us.
Owners, controllers, reducers, definitely.
Anyway, I cover a lot of this. By the way, I do cover SIDS on my DVD series. I will go over what is on this series. You can literally order them one part at a time. They're only $6 on my website to download it and upload it and show it. I encourage people, show it to friends, have them over, make some popcorn, make it a movie night, show them to people, wake them up, help me to get my word out there. I cover vaccine history, the polio vaccine, and the decline of life-threatening illnesses way before any vaccine was introduced. Natural immunic basics. I talk about the immune system, and I talk about 2 different immunologists who I trained with. Then part 3 is probably the most important part, man-made toxic ingredients in vaccines. I have all the medical studies and documenting their danger. Then part 4 is herd immunity deception. Do vaccines really protect? I show you where we have huge outbreaks of normal childhood illnesses in the vaccinated population after they get the vaccine.
Wow.
Okay. Part 5 is vaccines and autism. Have the studies been done? The answer is no. They lie. They did not do proper studies. Have the vaccines been fully examined? No. They looked at one vaccine and one vaccine ingredient. The MMR vaccine, they looked at the measles vaccine, and they looked at thimerosal. They never looked at all the other stuff that's in a vaccine. They never looked at combining them and making cocktails out of them. You know, it used to be when we were growing up, you got, I'm sorry. You got one vaccination. Now they combine them and put them into cocktails. So when you go in and get one jab, you're getting 4 to 6 vaccines.
Yeah,
That's never been studied.
6 in 1 in the UK. I mean, there's
Exactly.
I mean, if
That's
people
what we're
think
doing.
if people think COVID-19 was bad, you know, because it was an unplanned vaccine, it was done quickly, you know, they may have had 1 or 2 shots of that. Imagine 6 of them to a baby, months old.
It's crazy. My 6th chapter is on congressional hearings in the United States, on autism, on the influenza flu shot, the human papillomavirus one, the Gardasil, and much, much more. So this is like the most complete library you can find anywhere. Nobody has done this. And I know people have written books on it, but not many people have time to read. Not many people want to read. They want to watch a video. They want to see somebody just teaching them and showing them the facts. And that's what I did here. This is based on over probably 40 years of research. So my goal is to just reach people and save babies' lives. And
Are you happy? I think you've already said it, and I weren't listening very well. Are you happy if people buy that, they can put it on their YouTube channel and share it?
Absolutely. You know what, though? In the United States, they banned me off of YouTube. They got rid of, I used to have maybe 50 or 60 different videos up that people posted or that I posted or that I did. And they got rid of all of them at the beginning of COVID. They won't let me on YouTube. I can't have a page.
No, because there's a way of copying DVDs and putting them back on YouTube. I think people need to know this information.
Feel free. You have my permission. Do whatever you want to do to get them back on YouTube, because, you know, they won't let me do anything. In fact, my friend taught me how to go on TikTok and do TikTok videos. I put up 5 in one day. I got prepared and I did 5 of them. All of them were taken down within a couple of days.
Yeah, the secret is, and I shouldn't be talking to this live, but
It's not saying the word. I get it.
You have many channels, and you do it slowly. You don't put it all out at once, and they're none the wiser. But then you link each channel that you've got to the other one, and the public work it out. The authorities don't.
Well, feel free to use this any way you want. You can make snips here and there. You can cut out pieces and parts of it and post it wherever you want. Maybe just talk about my website in the process.
Oh yeah, no, it's important to the author being the main key, because we're not doing this for money. We're doing it for love.
That's right. That's what I do it. Believe me, if I thought 40 years ago that I'd have to work so hard just to take care of myself, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the effort that I've put into this did not make me rich and does not make me comfortable. I have to work. I have to keep working. And I'm almost 70. So
I think you've had the calling. You're a bit like a disciple from God. You're doing God's work.
Yes.
But it's also, helping you a little bit. But you certainly don't make money out of writing books and videos. Nobody does.
No. And it's like my one pastor friend said, Mary, you have a ministry, but you don't have a church behind you. And I said, you're right. The public is my church. Those who are seeking will find me. Those who are asking the hard questions will find me. And I don't tell people what to do. I just give them information that I've been digging up for years, thousands and thousands of hours. I make it really easy. If you saw my library of books behind me, I had to read books back in the day when I started this. I couldn't, we didn't even have the internet. So, I was around when Jenny McCarthy was a baby. In fact, how old are you, Andy?
I'm only 60 coming up now.
Okay. A lot of people go, when did you start doing this? I did this when most people interviewing me were babies. You're not a baby, but you know what I'm saying? A lot of the people I interview with are in their 30s, And I'm like, I was doing it when you were a baby, you know? I've been around.
Yeah, I started spreading the word, as God would say anyway,
Yes.
2006. So, yeah, so I suppose I was 40. Wasn't that young, but I never
No,
even had a computer at that stage, but I knew I need to spread the word.
I started lecturing in 1995. So my DVD came years later. When I started lecturing, I used overhead projectors with those clear sheets. Oh no, I started lecturing when I was 23 years of age.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been doing it a lot longer than the internet for sure. But this is what God called me to do. And every baby I reach, every parent I reach, I feel like is a baby saved in a family that doesn't have to go through the grief and the trouble, hopefully, that so many parents have gone through.
Absolutely. Amen. So childhoodshots.com, is it? Yeah,
Yes.
is your website. And well, it's good to meet you. And if you stay on here when I stop the live stream, and hopefully we can continue this very soon with author Timothy Spearman. He's well versed in vaccines and COVID and everything.
Let me know when he's available. I'll be happy